Hi, readers. This is going to be a reading of Sunday, December 3rd from Tangerine by Edward Bloor. Again, this corresponds to the uh, quarantine learning activities here. So we have our guided reading, and then we will also answer questions and do a book chat on Flipgrid. Let's go ahead and get started. Sunday, December 3rd. I was up before dawn today waiting for the news, the bad news. I was standing on the sidewalk when a white van with the squeaky brakes drove up. A thin arm reached out of the passenger side window and tossed the Sunday edition of the Tangerine Times onto the driveway. It was oversized, heavy, and double wrapped in a plastic bag. The same thing was happening all over Lake Windsor Downs. The same thing was happening at all the other developments. The white vans were pulling up, these fat plastic bags were flying out windows, bursting like water balloons in the homes of football fans of Lake Windsor High School. It sure was a mess. Our phone started ringing at 7 a.m. Dad answered it upstairs and heard the bad news from another football father. I don't even know which one. I was already down in the great room reading all about it. The story filled the bottom right-hand corner of the front page. It took up 2 columns there and was continued on page 10. The headline says, Lake Windsor athlete confesses in football scandal. There was a photo of Antoine Thomas leaving the Tangerine County Municipal Building with the caption, Star quarterback Antoine Thomas leaves emergency meeting of the Tangerine County Sports Commission. The front page was just the tip of the iceberg. The article continued inside with photos, charts, and quotations spread all across pages 10 and 11. There were photos of Antoine, Coach Warner, and the 3 members of the Tangerine County Sports Commission. There was a chart showing the territorial boundaries of Lake Windsor High School and Tangerine High School, and another chart showing the Lake Windsor football records before and after the arrival of Antoine Thomas. The quotes were from Coach Warner and Mr. Bridges. They were both, quote unquote, shocked by the news. Neither admitted to knowing anything about anything. The article itself began, the Tangerine County Sports Commission, meeting in an emergency session last night, voted to nullify all victories by the Lake Windsor High School football team over the last 3 seasons. This drastic action was taken in response to a confession made by Lake Windsor quarterback and Antoine Thomas to the commission members. In a signed statement, Thomas confessed to lying about his eligibility to attend Lake Windsor High School. The article quoted a commission member as saying that Antoine had contacted them, had met with them, and had presented them with a notarized statement. The same member said they had no choice but to uphold the regulations of the commission and to nullify all victories in which Mr. Thomas was involved. I couldn't believe what I was reading. I thought that maybe Lake Windsor would get fined, or that they would have to forfeit their last victory against Tangerine High, but not this. I never even suspected that the commission had such power. It was like that they were rewriting history. Lake Windsor had had a 7-3 record in Antoine's first season. They were 9-1 the next season and 10-0 this season. That's a total of 26 wins and 4 losses. Now they're 0-30. 0 wins and 30 losses over the last 3 seasons. And if that's not bizarre enough, every record that they had set with Antoine on the team has been nullified too. There was a boxed list of those. Most of the records belonged to Antoine Thomas, but Eric Fisher was in there for the longest field goal, the highest field goal percentage in a season, and the most extra points in a season. Not anymore. They're all nullified. There was another article that focused on a guy who lives in Tangerine on the same street as Antoine Thomas. He's a black guy and about 25 years old, who had played football at Tangerine High and then at Florida A&M. This is part of what he said. Everybody knows how it is. If you want that big-time football dream, that Heisman Trophy thing, you get out of Tangerine. No big-time scouts ever come here, ever. So you get yourself an address in Lake Windsor. You have your mail sent there, but you continue to live here. You live a lie. Everybody knows what's happening. Nobody asks any questions, but now Antoine is the one standing up and saying that it's all a lie, so people have to listen. I had finished reading all of the articles in the front section by the time Dad walked into the great room. He still had the phone in his hand, and he had forgotten to turn it off. I could tell by his face that he had already been told the basic facts. I handed over the front section without comment and looked to see what there was in the sports section. Dad sat down in a heap on the floor. He finally turned off the phone and he started to read, but the phone rang immediately. He listened impatiently and then said, I have no idea. I haven't even gotten a chance to read the paper yet. He hung up again and held the paper in front of him with both hands, like he was grabbing some guy by the lapels. I left him alone and examined the front page of the sports section. The left side had a column written by Mr. Donnelly with the strange title, Thoughts on an Imaginary Porcelain Plate. I almost didn't read it, thinking he had written the column before all of this Antoine stuff had happened. But I was wrong. Here is the entire column. Not too many people know this. For 20 years, I held the Tangerine County record for the most passing yards in a single game. How I got that record has as much to do with the weather conditions as it did with my talent as a quarterback. But I didn't care. The record was mine and I was proud of it. On the night I set my record, Tangerine High was playing Suwannee High during a violent thunderstorm. By all rights, the game should have been called off, but no one in authority had enough sense to do that. As the lightning flashed and the thunder cracked, I, the unsung quarterback of an unsung team, rose up and out of the mud not once but twice to achieve football immortality. Twice we were pinned on our own 5-yard line, and twice I dropped back, slipping and sliding, and heaved the ball. Twice a receiver ran under that heave and kept running 95 yards into the end zone. In 2 plays, I had passed for 190 yards. In the rest of the game, I would only pass for only 37 more, but the damage had been done. The old record had been shattered. The new record was mine. It went into the record book this way: most passing yards in a single game, 227, William F. Donnelly, Tangerine High. I have actually seen this record book at meetings of the Tangerine County Sports Commission. It's an old red book, and yes, I have looked up my name. That name, written in hand in a fat old book, is it. It's all you get. There's no trophy, no plaque, no certificate, no plate. You get that one handwritten line plus the knowledge inside of you that you hold the record. Well, that wasn't enough for me. I needed something more splendid, something that I could picture in my mind. So whenever I thought about the record, which was often, I imagined a fine porcelain plate. It was a large white plate encircled with 14-karat gold edging, a plate you would display proudly on the back wall of a trophy case, a plate that gleamed at visitors and invited comment. But it was also a fragile plate, one that would last only until fate smiled on some other quarterback, rising up out of some other mud puddle. Miraculously, my plate hung in contact for 20 years. When it was broken, when my record finally fell, it had nothing to do with a lucky heave or a slippery surface. Antoine Thomas of Lake Windsor High School broke my record midway through his sophomore season. He broke it on a sunny Saturday up at Lake Windsor High, playing against my old school. In that game, he threw for 250 yards and 5 touchdowns. But that was just the beginning. Antoine Thomas would break my record 6 more times. Actually, after the first time, he was breaking his own records. He would go on to rewrite that old red record book in dozens of single game, single season, and career categories, becoming the most dominant player of his or any other generation. Now, all that has changed. The Tangerine County Sports Commission has ruled that Antoine Thomas was not legally eligible to play for Lake Windsor High School. Therefore, the records that he broke were not legally broken. Do you realize what this means? The Tangerine County Sports Commission has gathered up the shards of my porcelain plate, crazy glued them together, and handed it back to me. I'm looking at it now. I guess they meant well, but they did a lousy job. I can see the cracks like the lines of age on a face. I can see the globs of glue like tears that will not fall. I can see the chips and missing flakes in the gold edging where circles had been broken. Thanks, Tangerine County Sports Commission, but no thanks. I'm not putting this thing back in my trophy case. I wouldn't even put this thing out on a garage sale. This is nothing to be proud of. Antoine Thomas holds the record for the most passing yards in a single game. Antoine Thomas is the greatest quarterback in the history of Tangerine County. Everybody knows that. I was glad that Mr. Donnelly had put in a good word for Antoine because it was clear that no one else was going to. The phone kept ringing. A strategy was emerging from the calls that Dad received and made. They were going to blame Antoine and Antoine alone. The families, the coaches, the teachers, and the fans were all denying that it had even dimly suspected that anyone was breaking any rule at any time. Give me a break. After I heard Dad telling an assistant coach that he too was shocked by the news, I couldn't take it anymore. I said, Dad, have you ever seen any of the Lake Windsor High football guys out running? He looked as if he were surprised that I was there. What? Have you ever seen any of the Lake Windsor High football guys out running, like along the roads? Yeah, sure. Why? Have you ever seen them riding 10 speeds or shooting hoops or playing tennis? Yeah. Have you ever seen them driving their cars? Yes. Okay, now have you ever seen Antoine Thomas doing any of those things? Have you ever seen Antoine running or biking or driving anywhere around here? Dad looked at me curiously, but still didn't get it. He answered, No, I can't say that I have. Have you ever seen him in the supermarket or at the pump, the gas station, or getting some fries and McD's? Dad was nodding his head now, but he wasn't agreeing with me. He was getting annoyed. What is this all about? I guess it's about your eyesight, Dad. Your eyesight and Coach Warner's and Mr. Bridges and everybody else's who was shocked today. But I've seen lots of those Lake Windsor guys in lots of places. Everywhere I go, in fact. But I've never seen Antoine Thomas. I've never seen him anywhere except the football stadium. That's because he doesn't live around here, Dad. He lives in Tangerine. Everybody knows that. Dad looked down. He knew I was right. He knew the truth. The phone rang again, but he didn't answer it.